Hello and welcome. We are sincerely sorry for the late start, but this week, Ingredient Spicy Media Productions included speculations over prospective Operation Sparrowhawk victims, deliberations over Marafa Hamidu Yaya's new book, high-profile obituaries, and then unfoldings at the National Assembly. But first up, here's a sum-up of our main talking points this weekend with Kejang Henry Atembe.
The recent spell of obituaries at the helm of state betrays claims that Cameroon is governed by a generation of aging people. What are the consequences of gerontocracy on governance in Cameroon? Another mission from the International Monetary Fund in Cameroon with recommendations on how the economy should be run. Should Cameroon continue to take advice from the Bretton Woods institutions? And the stretching list of deaths of senators raises fears over the functioning of the upper house of parliament. What are the replacement mechanisms in place? NEWSROOM attempts an answer to the above questions. Welcome. This is NEWSROOM coming to you live from our studios in Akwa-Douala.
Thank you sincerely, Kejang Henry Atembe. He's actually sitting here with us, but let's start with you, Elogo Sami Fobi. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're an educator and you actually teach at the British Language Institute out here in Douala.
That's right.
Tell me, I want to go beyond the nomenclature debates and just find out, are you breaking even considering there is flaring competition in the teaching milieu in Cameroon?
Yeah, we are.
How come?
Well, we have a team of highly qualified teachers and, of course, who are doing their job, and a management team which is strong enough to weather the storm.
All right. You probably must have heard the news. Tombi Aroko Sidiki is the lone candidate for the 29 November elections at the Cameroon Football Federation FECAFOOT. Are you surprised?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Well, it's a group that has been there for a long time, and Tombi Aroko has been part of the system. So, Ber Joseph Antoine and the others were just trying to beat a dead horse, I think.
The same Ber Joseph Antoine you mentioned is struggling to beat up a nationwide protest against Tombi Aroko Sidiki's candidature. That's as old as this morning. Ellie Smith, it's great to have you on the panel with us.
It's a pleasure.
You're a long-time convicted journalist.
Yes, sir.
Your last port of call was Brazzaville in next-door Congo. And on Wednesday, September 10, armed men in plain clothes actually attacked you in your home in Brazzaville.
Yes, exactly.
They actually told you they came to kill you.
Exactly. Yeah, they told me they came to kill me, and it was a kind of strange armed robbery because I've never seen a kind of armed robbers who are attacking you and communicating using their mobile phones. And
I understand this incident happened after you hoisted pictures on Facebook showing demonstrators being brutalized by government forces, because those pictures they coincided with plans by President Denis Sassou Nguesso to revise the constitution and run for office again in 2016. Am I correct?
Not entirely correct. First of all, I don't want to speculate. First of all, officially, Sassou Nguesso hasn't declared his intention to run for presidential election in 2016 because constitutionally he's barred to do so. But you have people around him who want him to. And now about the cause of the armed robbery that took place on the 10th, very early in the morning, by I think between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning. Well, is it because of the picture that I posted? Because on the 7th, yes, I posted the pictures of militants of the opposition being beaten up, bloody beaten up.
Why were they beaten up?
Well, they were beaten up because they organized a meeting, which was not an illegal meeting for that matter. It was authorized by the prefect of the city of Brazzaville, which I think they had all the necessary authorizations. But then it happens in countries where media aren't very free. So journalists who work in such milieus should be ready to undergo such treatment.
It is funny because the organ you worked for while in Brazzaville is called MNTV, which actually belongs to a brother to President Sassou Nguesso.
Yes, it belongs to the elder brother to the President of the Republic. But I think the other thing is MNTV had or still has an independent spirit which is not common within media milieux in Congo. You have to understand that in Congo Brazzaville is a country that has been dominated since 1963, okay, with socialist and communist ideology, whereby opposing views are not entertained.
Eventually, you were expelled from Congo. Are you intending to go back?
Well, I will, because I'm a kind of strange head, because I still, where I am, as though, well, the comparison might be a little bit exaggerated. It's like when De Gaulle was in London, but still leading the French Free Forces in France. Okay. So I am still the director of MN Television, but living abroad. Yeah.
Thanks very much for coming to share your thoughts with us this afternoon. This is going to be the big surprise of the day. Kejan Henry Atembe, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. And
it's strange to have you on the panel with us, considering you also work with us.
Well, that's not strange, actually. It's strange to know that Sir Smith is operating from abroad. If it were in Cameroon, the law doesn't permit. Of course, you know that.
You must
sit here. Yes.
Now, last night, the telephone numbers changed digits. They increased by 1 from 8 to 9. Did you make calls yesterday in the evening, and how comfortable were you with them?
I made some few calls, but I must confess that it's not been very easy. When the digits move from 6 to 7, we face the same problems, and now from 8 to 9. Okay. But the major challenge is struggling to update, since we don't have, some of these programs to be able to facilitate the task.
The National Telephone Regulatory Agency says the goal of this operation is to move possibilities of active lines to 800 million.
Well, that is their.
It is salutary, isn't it?
It is salutary because it tells you that we are moving forward.
But is it on the part of the client to be changing those numbers, putting 6 in front of the mobile numbers?
If they should talk, I don't think so. If they should talk about evolving in technology, they too should be able to upgrade our telephone numbers. They should back up. We have backups. There's a backup system, so automatically these things should be backed up or should be updated. And I can confess that I've been dieseling since morning trying to update my number. Okay. It's not easy to update 10 numbers.
Yeah, of course.
Either you flop.
Thanks for being here. And as we speak, there's a delegation from neighboring Chad in Douala to conduct a search for a missing journalist. He's called Sotinan Didier Nobadum. He got lost on the 4th of March on transit to the same Congo where you were expelled from, Eli Smith. Thanks once again, gentlemen, for bringing along such linguistic fluency and intellectual maturity. Let's rev up the pace right now by revisiting what the paper said. Up next is Press Review.
Newsstands countrywide were crammed early Monday by curious news consumers, glimpsing the headlines in readiness for inevitable debates amid expanding rumors of a fresh hunt for victims by the blood-curdling anti-graft Operation Sparrowhawk. And behold, the papers in their vast majorities lived up to expectations. Cogitating upon last week's arrest and pre-trial detention of former regime baron, Professor Gervais Mendoza, L'Anecdote, La Météo, La Nouvelle and Calara all questioned whose turn it will be next, while L'Anecdote concluded that the ex-minister delegate at the Ministry of Communication and former CRTV boss for 17 years was paying the price for crying out too loud at the Mvomeka funeral of Paul Biya's mother-in-law, Rosette Mbuchuang. La Météo and La Nouvelle unveiled rosters of prospective victims of the menacing Sparrowhawk. Meantime, Le Messager opted to review Marafa Hamidou Yaya's Le Choix de l'Action. In the 410-page book authored by the incarcerated former Territorial Administration Minister, the 62-year-old former Secretary General at the Presidency presents a balance sheet of his 10-year stay at the helm of that ministry, recounting his efforts to instill a proactive approach to governance and citing inertia as Cameroon's key governance scourge. Elsewhere, La Nouvelle Expression dedicated its lead story space to the November 15 death of former Cameroon ambassador to the U.S., 76-year-old Jérôme Menduga, who was slammed a 10-year jail term in 2012 for stealing a chunk of money disbursed for the purchase of the presidential jet, the Albatros. And while Calara insinuated the diplomat's death was deliberately expedited by medical attention deprivation, the Messager pounced on the obituary to report in its cover story that so far, 5 priests of the Sparrow Hawk, including Buto Angon, Dieudonné Angula, Henri Ngulu, and Catherine Abena, have died serving time in jail. In its Tuesday delivery, La Nouvelle Expression openly frowned at Marafa, decrying his omission and scanty presentation of facts and details regarding his role in defending the 2008 removal of presidential term limits from the Constitution, as well as his masterminding the imprisonment of ex-Njombe Penja mayor Paul NTARIKYE. Meanwhile, Lojou, Calara, Mutation, and the Guardian Post all predicted looming tragedy for Paul Atanganji. According to the publications, the minister in charge of special duties at the presidency and permanent secretary of the National Security Council was awaited Tuesday at the Special Criminal Court to explain his role in the theft of billions of francs from Camp Post. Then, via roaring, sarcastic first-page caption, Mutation accused the Pan-African Jeune Afrique of manipulation after the Paris-based weekly leaned on rumors to announce the arrests and detention of former Douala and Yaoundé 2 university rectors, Bruno Bekolo Ebe and Tabi Manga. Then, away from the mesmerizing Sparrow Hawk psychosis, Emergence embarrassed the country's army, hoisting a letter addressed to President Biya by a divisional officer in the East region accusing Warrant Officer Mvemana Paulin of leasing weapons, including arms and ammunition, to armed robbers, as well as indulging in poaching protected animal species. The week grew older, and in its Wednesday delivery, Le Messager claimed possession of reasons why Minister Paul Atanganji snubbed the summons to appear before the Special Criminal Court Tuesday. According to the Douala-based Daily, the Mezam 1 CPDM section president was not cleared by hierarchy at the presidency to make the outing. Before qualifying Atanganji's behavior as a hide-and-seek tactic, La Nouvelle Expression unrolled a lead story narrating how SDF MPs pressured House Speaker Kavayege Jibril into setting up an informal commission of inquiry to probe allegations that Transport Minister Robert Nkili and his economy and planning counterpart Emmanuel Nganu Jumesi inflated bills related to the 2011 government purchase of 2 MA-60 Chinese planes for Cameco. Then, wrapping up the week Thursday and Friday, the Post, in its weekend edition, questioned who was blocking Atanganji's prosecution before joining La Nouvelle Expression and Eden to shine the light on how SDF MPs saw their draft laws dumped at the National Assembly. Elsewhere, Le Pévier fanned the flames of embarrassment, claiming that several serving government ministers lack even the baccalaureate certificate. And then Lloyd du Sahel remarked that 118 schools in the far north had shut down their doors for fear of Boko Haram attacks.
And now standing by Yaoundé on the line is Honorable Joshua Osi of the SDF. I'm being told that he is not yet online. But while we wait for him to come online to give us what's going on at the National Assembly, my World Web Dictionary defines gerontocracy as a system of government with old men at the helm. And apparently that's the form of government opted by the regime in Cameroon, the 32-year serving Paul Biya regime. Mr. Elogo Sami Fobi, a Bantu adage posits that what an old man sits down seeing, you will not see as a young man, even if you climbed a mango tree.
Of course, and that may explain why we have many old men in the government today. Well,
It means they're sitting down and seeing well.
Of course, they're sitting down and seeing well, and I think that's the right position is to take the back seat and really sit down well, because I have the impression that they're not really sitting down well. They shouldn't be standing up anyway because they don't have enough energy for that. They should leave younger people who have the strength, and energy, who can run around the place doing things, trying to implement certain methodology to do it correctly, instead of taking the forefront, because of course they can't do it.
I can see we're going to come to talk about what young people could do in the government. But Ellie Smith, in other words, political pundits and scientists argue that gerontocracy is deep-rooted and indigenous in our culture and traditions. And that it's just natural that we import it into our modern governance system.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a system which is corrupt, which is not at par with the reality of the population. And that's the reason why you have a number of old men and women who are running the country. I think a modern country which claims, because I've heard it, that Cameroon is supposed to be an emerging economy.
By the year 2035.
Which is not true. But the population or those governors should reflect the population of Cameroon, because you have in reality about 50 or 60% of the Cameroonians are a young generation. And when you are young, you live with the reality of the people. You understand it more better than somebody who is old. So you cannot imagine a person who is about 80 years old, he will not understand the reality of somebody who is 40 or 30. So that's why I think there's nothing like reality being, what is a culture reflected at the helm of government. No, it's wrong.
Someone says a beautiful example to the hypothesis you're leading us onto, Ellie Smith, is the fact that during the USA-Africa Summit that held earlier this year in the United States, a couple of Cameroonian ministers actually betrayed their computer illiteracy by lacking mastery of that communication tool. Keja, you're laughing. Our fondoms, our lamidads, and our chiefdoms, etc., all worked well, despite the fact that they were run by old men. I'm coming back with that question because Ellie Smith didn't satisfy me.
Yeah, but they work work well, but not without the fresh blood. The king's seat, the queen's seat, and there are those who work from the background, and those who work from the background are the younger people. Let me just take you a few days behind, because I was in Fumban, where I took part for 11 good days, at the one festival, and I saw the king. Now, those who mastermind, those who are working the issues of the Sultanate are young people. Njel Share is the director of cultural affairs. In fact, he tells you everything from 1394 till today.
But he's not the one at the helm.
At the helm, it's just a ceremonial position. I don't think the Queen of England will be able to press the buttons. Some people are there doing the job.
Exactly.
Just like Smith was saying, just like Sammy was saying, have the seat at the background. They say now they will reflect, in their own small way, like wise men. But are they really wise in their decisions?
Elogo, let me come to you with this question. Observers say it was not always so. President Ahijo became president of Cameroon at the age of 36 in 1960. I want you to take note of these statistics. Paul Biya was 34 when he was appointed Director of Civil Cabinet at the presidency in 1967. He was 42 when he became Prime Minister in 1975, and he was 49 when he succeeded Amadou Ahijo in 1982. What possibly explains the turnaround?
Well,
the same dinosaurs of the 1960s are the same ones ruling us today. How do you explain that?
Well, maybe when they come to power, they have the impression that they've got a lot of things to propose to Cameroonians with a lot of programs and so on. And after so many years, they can't deliver the goals. So they think after these years that they can still make it.
Okay.
So they keep holding on to power for just no good reason, when it's very, very obvious that they can't really deliver the goals.
I'm going to take this personal with you, Ellie Smith.
Yes.
If you were given the chance to run this country, what would you change that the current regime has failed to do?
First of all, I do wish I shouldn't have to have a responsibility. Anyway,
Yes,
it is a matter of speculation or fiction. Maybe can fiction become a reality? It's very difficult. Okay. If I were, the first thing is to fight against corruption try to create the enabling environments to offer jobs to the teeming youth population who are unemployed, and then try to create a country whereby there is equality of people of diverse origin and background, and then have real democracy, not a democracy of facade.
All right.
Yes, those are things I think I will do.
When I listened to NTARIKYE speak a couple of minutes ago, I thought he was purely opposition, and I'm going to take him to task by asking you, the Fundis, the Bello Bubas, the Ndamjoyas, they haven't shown the example at the level of the opposition, at least. They're still there. Fundi has still been there since 1990.
Yes, they are still there. They will always be there because the mechanisms are not in place, to make people understand that a political party is not a person's affair. Now, it is a person's affair. UPC was Kodok's affair. Manidem is a Kane's affair, right? UDC is Boba's is Ndamjoya's affair. So that is a problem. But now, when we make people understand that the Socialist Party or the Democratic Party or the Republican Party is not Bush's affair or Obama's affair, then we will now know that these people have to quit when their mandate ebbs out. So, but now it is their affair. Until they decide when to leave, nobody will push them out from the window.
The same Honorable Joshua Osi was struggling to get in touch with, who is currently at the National Assembly in Yaoundé. It's a shining example because he's very young and he's the first vice president of the leading Social Democratic Front, the SDF. Do you think across the other parties Henry was naming, the youth are not really involved?
No, I don't think
They're
so.
not very involved?
I think they are, especially in a party like the SDF. But like Kejan was saying, there's this, the head of these parties, these guys don't want to leave.
They will tell you they fought for it.
Exactly.
It's not that I'm against chairman. No,
Exactly.
I am not against him. But I've heard him several times say, in fact, face to face, when I was fighting, where were you? Were you there?
Exactly.
So it means because
He risked his life. He risked his life for you to have that, in quotes, democracy. And to let him enjoy it, he dies.
Ellie Smith, in June 2008, the French language monthly La Cité revealed that 80% of Cameroon's ruling class consists of people who are way beyond retirement age.
Yes, I think it is not wrong, because if you look at those who are governing, for example, the head of the National Police Security, the Police Force of Cameroon, look, I think it's about 77-year-old. When you look at the hierarchy of the Cameroon army, they have an average age of about 80 years old. All of them are about 77 and something. Well, I think the problem is a matter of regeneration. I don't want to have any problem of generational conflict here, but I think the government needs to put in the mechanism to encourage young people to come up. And the other thing is that young men and women should also have a spirit of sacrifice, because there is a culture of immediacy these days where nobody wants to sacrifice.
I was going to take you there.
Exactly. For them, when we talk about the Social Democratic Front and others, there are many young men and women who would not like to become members of the SDF because they know that we are not living in in a very good democratic system, whereby they think if you have a kind of insignia that you are a member of the opposition, it might maybe
debar you from progress.
Exactly. So I think that's the reason why. But I also think about the Social Democratic Front, if there haven't been any kind of change at the top, I think it is because of the charter of the party. I have observed that there have been a number of elections within. I think the time will tell. I think this is the main opposition party in Cameroon. They have been doing pretty well, contrary to what I read people say. They are trying, because it's not difficult to be an opposition party in a country like Cameroon or in Africa. It's not easy at all. Yeah. It is not easy.
Now, let me take your last thoughts on this before we move on to the next issue of the day, while expecting that we'll still get in touch with Honorable Joshua Osi, who's at the within the bowels of the National Assembly in Yaoundé. Now, one last question, and I want you to be as sincere as possible, gentlemen. Mr. Elogo?
Yes.
Is old age a hindrance to governance?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They've got that part to play too in the process. But like I said before, it's hard to be limited. They have to understand what they can bring to the government, and of course to know the part they have to play in the government. So to give more and more chances to young people, to come into play and bring in fresh blood, fresh ideas. and something different.
Someone may listen to you talk and say they can see you coming. Hopefully, you're going to be one of the leaders tomorrow, and don't stick on there until you are chased out. Henry?
So.
Well, OH, you are asking the question which was asked to Didier Rachirak when he wanted to bounce back
in Mozambique,
of Madagascar.
Madagascar.
When Christophe Bouvier asked him if he was not too old to be the president of Madagascar, again, he gave back the answer, go and ask Mr. Biya. I followed that interview. Ask Mr. Biya or President Mugabe if I am older than they are. And then that is the answer. If it is a hindrance, it might be a hindrance, but then the hindrance will be from maybe the younger people around you who will not want you to release.
Do you buy that,
they'll keep feeding fat.
No, I don't buy it at all. Mugabe is a catastrophe. This is a man who took over Zimbabwe, which was a prosperous country in Southern Africa. He has destroyed it. Right. And now when you come to the case of President Biya, do you think that when somebody is about 80 years old, is he a good ruler? No, I don't think so. I think a ruler should be at par with the reality. You said something, yes. I was in the United States. It's not a problem only about Cameroonian ministers who do not know how to use computers and everything. You see them, it is a sad case. And we are in the 21st century. I think when you are old, you can sit behind and give advice to young generation. So I am against old people hanging around power.
We'll take a slight breather, and when we come back, we'll get into our next issue this afternoon. It's about the IMF and its controversies around Africa and especially Cameroon. Don't go away. And so this week, Mario de Zamaroxi, that's the leader of a visiting IMF delegation to Cameroon, advised the government and precisely Prime Minister Philemon Yang that the government should seriously consider the customs and tax exemptions it instituted following the hunger riots in 2008. According to the Bretton Woods Institution, the context have changed and those tax breaks should be scrapped and money saved to drive the country's economy forward. Should Cameroon, Mr. Elogo, and other African countries continue to look up to the West and the IMF or the World Bank to give them directives on how to run their own economies?
Well, we've given them the chance to do that because we've not been able to run our own affairs. So that's why they're coming in to give us some ideas. But coming to the IMF, I think they're right to ask Cameroon to stop subsidies on products like rice, flour, sugar.
Yeah, that's a rare person I hear saying that.
Yeah, they're right, I think, because we shouldn't continue like this because we are depending on imports. We should be able to produce.
All right.
So why don't we use that money, we're subsidizing these products to develop these different sectors in our country. Look at, for example, when many years ago we used to talk about the ndop rice. Today, when you go to the market, you find rice from Thailand, rice from Vietnam, India. Why can't we develop rice in Cameroon, the sector? Why can't we produce our own sugar, and etc.? Now, we've got good quality cotton.
Yes.
But do we produce clothes here? We don't. So we sell this cotton, and they come back as finished products,
which you buy and wear.
Which you buy and wear, and very expensively. Now, if you go to a village and tell a farmer, take your cocoa and eat it like this, he'll think you're crazy. But when he produces his cocoa and sells it, he thinks he's giving his wife a treat by maybe offering her a tin of Ovaltine. But he doesn't know that the same Ovaltine was made out of cocoa, and it's because it was taken out of this country and brought back in the form of Ovaltine, and he's enjoying it, thinking he's giving his wife a treat.
Enrique Janatembe, when the IMF was initially set up in the 1940s, that was about 50 years ago, its role was to offer loans and bailouts with the intention of stabilizing the global financial system and helping economies not to break down. But The IMF has increasingly become very unpopular across Africa, you agree?
No, but it's not unpopular. It's playing an advisory role too, because it is scandalous to hear that, okay, they offer you money and this same money is scraped off by your people and sent back to foreign banks.
All right.
You see the nuance.
Exactly.
So it becomes difficult and you still impoverish yourself, whereas the advisory role that they play is use this money, develop your structures, provide food for your people, provide health facilities. Now, Sami was talking about food. Now, do you know the number of mouths that Cameroonians will have to feed? For example, their refugees already are in their millions in Cameroon.
Exactly.
Now, if we don't, for example, scrape off some of these taxes on imports of basic necessities, it will mean that we will not be able to feed even the refugees that we are pretending to harbor as a country of legendary hospitality. So I think it is very normal that, you know, the advisory role that the Bretton Woods is playing should keep continuing, because our people are not doing the best.
I'm going to beg to contradict you, Henry. You wanted to say something?
Yes. A country which says it has to emerge in 2035 and which is not producing, how real is that?
All right. But I wanted to beg to contradict with you a while, Henrique Atembe, when you say the IMF's role is limited to advisory.
No, not limited,
so.
really. Not limited. It is a complementary role that they have to play.
All right.
They must advise you on how to use the money.
All right. But Cameroonians are always going to remember privatization of state corporations.
Yes. Exactly.
They're always going to remember the 1993 pay cuts. Salaries were slashed for civil servants by about 75%.
True.
And the recent removal of fuel subsidies. These were part of what they call the structural adjustment programs in Smith.
Yes.
It's been a big damage to the economy of Cameroon.
Well, not only to the economy of Cameroon. I would like to cherry pick a little bit about subsidies. There are some sectors that subsidies should stay, and there are others that subsidies should be lifted.
Where should they stay, for example?
For example, in a problem like fuel and electricity, I think subsidies it should remain.
And potable water?
In water, yes, and water as well. And agricultural products. But there is another thing. Now it is very difficult. It's kind of dilemma. If you want to encourage an agricultural sector, like my colleagues here said about agriculture, like rice, grain of rice, it is true. It is true, it will encourage local farmers, but then the government also need to have the incentives, because you cannot encourage local farmers when you don't have you don't provide fertilizers, you don't have any fertilizers plan. I think the government needs to put in place all those things. But on the other hand, we are crying about IMF. Why is it that people don't cry about the type of love that we have fallen with China that is doling out tons and tons of money? We don't know how the condition in which. I think the danger of most African countries, the danger of Cameroon as well, is the over-dependent, over-reliability on China Exim Banks or Chinese aid or Chinese subventions and aid to Cameroon. I think IMF is good. IMF has to help Cameroon, but Cameroon needs to do a lot, because I've seen in countries like in Latin America, when we reform a lot, we are going to have positive effects. It means we have small government and lesser control of government affairs and allow the people to have this initiative to create.
I'll let anyone take this question and take the lead in doing the answering. Some say Cameroon's huge independence on diktats from the IMF is a clear indicator that the country lacks economy brains. I'll let you answer, whoever wants to start first.
No, it's wrong. We have very brilliant economists. And there are many countries around the world. For example, if you take, for example, Peru, when Fujimori came to power, Peru's economy was almost crumbling. But with the advice and the aid that they had from the IMF, Peru is today a real emerging economy. And I want to say once again here, the idea of saying that Cameroon is going to be an emerging economy in 2035 is absolutely wrong. The person who invented that, we have the BRICS, was Jim O'Neill. We have
Brazil, Russia,
yes,
India.
that was BRICS. And now the same Jim O'Neill, who was working with Goldman Sachs, has come out again with another 4 countries that will be emerging around 2025 and 2050s. We have Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Turkey, and Cameroon is nowhere to be found. Ivory Coast, Congo, Gabon, none of those countries have no future in it.
Keja Henry Atembe, can Cameroon, for example, pronounce a divorce with the IMF and think that it can succeed?
It might not be. It might not be easy, because Gbagbo tried that when he was facing tough times with his present successor, Ouattara, and even trying to produce his own currency, pronouncing a divorce is not even going to be a very easy thing, especially as we are all very global. Now, Smith has already talked about the recent developmental blocks that are coming up and how they are going to emerge, and we are already seeing them. So now if Cameroon is pronouncing such a divorce, it's like saying that you are going to pronounce a divorce or refusing from aligning with the ACP countries, initiative which we have already signed.
And talking about the emergence in 2035, I like the French version of that phrase which says horizon 2000 transcend. Someone says it's just a horizon, so it's still very abstract. Now, environmentalists argue, Logo, that the IMF loans are a major contributor to climate change. Look at the Lompanga, for example. If you look at the Chircamoon pipeline, if you look at the Ivory Coast, 75% of that country's forest belt has disappeared as a result of IMF loans to develop the cocoa sector in the Ivory Coast. Do you agree that the IMF is a major destroyer of our environment?
Oh, to some extent, yes. Yes, if you look at the contribution that they give to, to Cameroon in the timber sector, for example, to be able to develop, to clear the forest in Cameroon, to export timber. So it's to some extent, yes, they are helping they are helping the country to devastate the forest.
Henry?
Well, I was talking with one economist who he asked me a simple question, and it was very clearing. Now, do you know the number of cranes you find in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, for example? I told him, well, I talk cranes when we put up structures, skyscrapers. He said the number of cranes you find in Abidjan is approximately 150. And comparatively, the number of cranes you find in Douala is not up to 50.
Why are you driving?
Now, it tells you the pace of development, the speed with which they are developing, and they are moving towards the forest, telling you that there is this difficulty in trying to strike a balance between development and, of course, regulating the climate. Even now we are talking about RED plus, which is a very complex issue. How do you moderate the climate and strike a balance with the development? We need farms to cultivate. We need land to build. We need to construct roads to expand. How do we strike a balance?
There's a beautiful idea that comes from the RED Plus people. You pay people to emit less carbon. The IMF says, Ellie Smith, that they foresee Cameroon's growth at about 5% by December 2014.
Yes, it's
despite the 5% growth, I talked to a couple of people along the streets of Douala, and they say be it 2%, be it 10%, be it 25%.
They don't feel the pinch.
Until they can get money into their pockets and their palms, nothing is palatable.
No, it's true. Now, let me do some rectification, if I may. First of all, I don't think the IMF encourages deforestation of our forests. It is our corruption that encourages deforestation, because the government doesn't respect the codes in deforestation programs.
In the Ivory Coast, 70% of the forest land lost is due to loans that were taken from the IMF to grow cocoa.
Yeah, it's true, to grow cocoa, but that's the reason why the Ivorian economy is better than ours. They have a very good agrarian economy. Now, as far as growth is concerned, on a macroeconomic level, 5% is enough. But for a country like us, where we have a lot of poverty, if you want that there should be an effect in a microeconomy, you need to have at least a growth rate of 10% for at least 2 or 1 decade completely. But when you have in a situation whereby it oscillates between 3 and 5%, it is not enough. You have in a situation whereby the economy has been down, 5% can be admirable for a European, but for a developing countries like us, we need to have a double-digit growth for at least 10 years. That is for at least a decade, in order for that ordinary man, the men and women you met on the street, to have an indication, to have a booster into their own individual, to have a change in their individual life. So I think the Cameroonian government needs to do a lot to reform in order to create the enabling environment to attract investors that will in return boost the economy and make it to... I think we need to have an objective, to have a target to reach our 10%. We should not be content with about 5%, and we are happy with 5. I think it's going to be 5.1% because this year it is 5%. So I think it is not enough. The government has to do a lot to reform and to liberalize the economy, create the necessary and enabling the environment that will attract investors and competitors.
The lot that you're saying the government has to do actually comes in terms of having a bigger budget when you consider the security issues in the far north and at the border with the Central African Republic. You want to see a bigger budget this year, up from the over 3,000 billion we had for this year.
Yeah. I think we should be looking forward to that. Like my colleague said, we need to liberalize the economy, and that may bring us more money, and government has to review that policy, of course, and of course to try to generate more income, create more jobs, etc., to keep the economy alive and to bring in more money into the coffers of the state.
Keja Henry, keeping the economy alive goes through the public investment budget.
Yes.
In last month, we had figures at the newsroom at Canal 2 International. Those figures showed us that the execution rates were below 50%, like 47%. But on Friday, that was yesterday, at a news conference in Yaoundé, Economy and Planning Minister Emmanuel Nganou Jumesi said Cameroon had attained 89% execution rate for its public investment budget. That's a dramatic turnaround.
It's dramatic.
Is it playing foul
a
with the figures?
good word. In fact, it's dramatic. Because in fact, it's not even dramatic. It's scandalous. Because you cannot tell me that in 1 week we have been able to we quit from 37 to 45. Because we have not even reached. It is even catastrophic. We're talking about program budget. Now, when we talk of program budget or result-based budget, I think that should be the right way to put it.
Yes.
Now, last year we were talking of 49%. This year, I don't think we've even reached. But now, when the minister tells us recently that we've clocked 80%, we should wait at the end of the year when the right figures will come out, because President Paul Biya will still hammer on that during his end-of-year address to the nation.
So, what you think is struggling to avoid another curse and from the president?
Well, the president will judge him, and let's leave that by the 31st of this month, of the month of December, when President Paul Biya will address the nation.
Let me hear you react to that, Elogo. Let me hear you react to this fact.
Well, I think I agree totally with what he said. So nothing to add.
I see you smiling.
Yeah, I smile. Well, my problem is this: it is not the amount of budget that is necessary. I think, for example, Cameroon has major infrastructural projects that they have put in place. Normally, if you took history is a guide. For example, when they launched a New Deal in the United States, it kickstarted a lot of the creation of a massive employment and had to relaunch the economy because it created employment. Okay. But why is it that our own massive infrastructural development doesn't create jobs? I think, on the other hand, is that when you look at the classification of Cameroon in the Charter of Doing Business, we are in the bottom. And it means that people who want to come they will first of all go all over where they are well placed before coming to our own country. So I think the government of the Cameroon needs to do an effort to reform, fight against corruption, have very little civil service. You cannot have a country where you have 200,000 civil servants. Is a lot.
Okay. Unfortunately, and you could see it, we're running out of time. We cannot be able to have Honorable Joshua Osi speak to us from the bowels of the National Assembly in Yaoundé. But let me get your last words on this, and I'll begin where I started. Elogo Sami Forbi. Cameroon Senate is now short of 3 members. I just want your very snappy comments on this. Do you see problems in the future? We've lost 3 senators in the past 7 months.
Yes, because
we're coming back to gerontocracy.
Yes, of course, they are linked. I think if you look at the Senate right now, the president of the Senate is Marcy. I think it's about 85, if I'm not wrong, and you have Chief Mukete, who is about 94 years old. These guys are old, of course, and they are close to their graves, and of course, I don't have anything. I don't have anything against that, because I personally believe that the Senate, just like the House of Lords in Britain, should be composed of members who are, of course, old in quotes, and of course who have a lot of experience,
Right.
because they have to make very important decisions for the state. But on the other side, it presents a small problem, because they are very old too, and they are close to their grave, and we should be thinking about how to replace them, you know, how to create a little bit younger Senate in the future.
Of course, there are replacement mechanisms in place, but Kejan, one of those replacement mechanisms prescribe partial elections within 12 months.
Well,
now what happens if, well, like he was saying it, most of them are close to their graves. What happens if you have further deaths and the quorum cannot be attained?
Divine, let me tell you that I pray to even live above 100 years. I met one mama who told me she saw 3 generations of kings in Fumban. I envied her, and she moved on her legs. But let me just say that if I come into the newsroom and within a spell of a month, 3 journalists die in my newsroom, I will not step leg day again. You understand?
All right.
Now, just to say that, they are overworking themselves. So, and I want to believe that many more will die. I'm not saying that because if you hear that all of us are 85, 86, 87, and you hear that 3 have been clocked, somebody who sits beside you is dead. He might die not because he's sick. He might pick up a crisis because
he got scared that
and
you
get scared of death and die.
Let's
Because now you ask yourself, who next?
Let's get out of this. Let's get out of this.
Yeah,
We don't want to concentrate on the obituaries.
I think there are mechanisms in place. There should normally be by-elections,
Right.
which will replace those who have died.
Of course, the articles speak for themselves, and that's why we call it quits this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're very sorry we took off late and we could not get Honorable Joshua. We plan to serve you better next weekend. Until then, have a great weekend and ciao.